I'd like to speak today about inner peace innovation. And by inner peace, I don't just mean sitting around the campfire or meditating, but peace of mind, inner peace. And I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to take off my usual scientist or my academic researcher hat. I'm going to try and put on my hat of childhood imagination and stories. Because for me, it's ultimately the imagination that creates our technology, our tools, and above all, our human stories that gives me hope. So I think we can learn a lot about peace innovation from Dr. Seuss. And this is one of my favorite books by him. It's the Butter Battle book, and it's this playful commentary on the nuclear arms race and the Cold War. And I bring it up not to bring up nuclear arms, but to show that this book teaches us, in metaphor and in story, the real power of human technology and human psychology, and at times, its real dangers. So at times, we're dealing with matters of life and death. And these dangers affect us all. So we've all heard of people who died from texting at the wheel, say even from a simple LOL. So why do we text? Why do we pick up in these situations? It's not really to be cool or to rebel. I mean, so I pick up sometimes when I'm driving just to say, I'm driving now, I can't talk. So it seems that we text and we pick up in these situations because we develop a sense of urgency or kind of social expectation that you have to respond in these situations. So in some sense, we're losing a kind of psychological freedom. And there are newer technologies coming out trying to address things like this by using things like vehicle motion detection or even GPS to allow you to automatically disable things like texting while you're driving. And while this may be a step in a better direction perhaps, I think we should really be careful of how our smarter technologies are maybe dumbing down our abilities for self-regulation and control. And in psychology, this is known as self-efficacy, or it's a belief in your abilities for control and effecting change. And I've always sort of liked the image of learning how to surf and controlling a surfboard for this process. So sure, our technology should improve, get smarter if you like, but in parallel, I think we should really focus on how we can train or support people's abilities in training for self-efficacy and control over their relationship with technology. And in terms of control, for some people it may be more easy to, let's say, carve out that technology Sabbath in your life, or to just put your phone in airplane mode from time to time. I really think the best way is to just try to recreate, you redefine your relationship with technology for yourself. So that could be by trying to address that social expectation, maybe letting your friends know you may not respond so quickly to that text or message or post or whatever. And so just try to train yourself, and you may train others in that process. But really just try to take control, learn as you go, experiment, revise with the whole process. But for many of us, that could be a very challenging thing to change, this urgency, this social expectation, conditioning, even addiction. But I think we can start to address this with newer technologies that can be built into phones. So we're not talking about really reinventing the wheel here. So you can take the simple autoresponder or away message we remember from the days of IMing, and that can essentially be extended to address things like driving. So what if with one flick of a button on your phone, you can have an instant away message or responder to let people know you're driving. Or this can be extended to address things just like away time, family time, evenings, that could actually be your evenings or weekends. So a mom or a dad can say from, let's say, 5 to 7 p.m. is away time because that's when they want family time with the kids or dinner time. So really, if we think about this, the social network can be used to help us. We can actually use the social network to let each other know when other times we don't want to be responding and we don't want to be plugged in. And so, yeah, really, the social network can be leveraged to help us, in a sense, turn away from the social network when we know it's right. And so once you have this basic functionality, something so simple, we can make it fun and then build games around it. So the process of reaching somebody can become like a fun game of childhood tag, where you have sort of bases for certain times of day and week where you can't be reached. Or if you prefer, kind of hide and go seek. Or if you're older and you're a little bit more cunning, you can think of it as a little bit of catch me if you can. And it's nice. It seems that things are changing already. We're being told we're designing phones to save us from our phones, to get in, out, and back to life. So when I was a kid, adults told me not to believe everything you see in commercials. And I'll tell you, I didn't get every G.I. Joe or Batman action figure I wanted. But I did learn that if you knew how to ask nicely and work your charm, you just might be able to get adults, and we just could get tech designers to give us our cake and let us eat it too. I love this picture. And honestly, I'm hopeful for where technology can go. My good friend Neekaan Oshidary, right now, he's teaching a class that some of my other friends are taking on a field that Neekaan is building up and calling calming technology to address our tech-related stress and tech overload. And there are people these days in industry like Ben Fullerton speaking about designing for solitude. So I think these are all really good steps. So to craft it in the language of story, we are in some ways on a very interesting human and technological odyssey. So here you see Odysseus from Homer's The Odyssey. Well, actually, this is Wishbone playing Odysseus, Wishbone being from the PBS TV series I watched as a kid, which was by the way, it was my first exposure to Odysseus and a lot of the great literature and stories of the world. So, as it shows, the power of media and technology can give me great hope. And we've seen a lot of that work being done here, real good that can come out of social media and all these endeavors. But at the same time, I think it really needs to come by really looking at the magnitude of the crisis. So the very real and negative effects we're seeing on our psychological and our social development, on things like attention, distraction, quality of our relationships, loneliness, narcissism, self-consciousness, addiction. So even noble Odysseus, we're told, had his hubris. And it's true, like him, the only way to learn is really to make mistakes, to live and to grow wiser. And we don't have sort of wise Athenas whispering in our ears telling us what's the thing to do. But we are being told these days by many people that we may be putting our lives and the lives of others in danger. And perhaps if we just constantly listen to our texts, our Twitter tweets, our Facebook posts, and whatever else our phones provide us, either today and tomorrow, we may forget how to listen to the most amazing technology we have, this human technology, this gift that comes to us wrapped in the intricacies of our brains and bodies. It's presented to us as mind and heart. And these days, there's this movement to try to combine technology with wisdom from meditation or other contemplative traditions, and I think this is good. But at the same time, I think we really benefit from an understanding of history and the humanities, and to really listen closely to people who have studied the gravity of this situation, and who have discussed it in far more detail than I discuss here. But in the words of another PBS show I watched, Reading Rainbow, don't take my word for it. If it comes up. There are two books that really delve into the real crisis, or the real dark side of this crisis, are Professor Sherry Turkle's book, Alone Together, and Dr. Elias Abujade's book, Virtually You. And it's really fascinating to see how our psychology does and also doesn't change across history. So Sherry Turkle writes how even the founders of artificial intelligence were taken aback by the ethical and the theological implications of their enterprise. And they discuss with each other the mythic resonance of their new science. And it makes me wonder what J.R.R. Tolkien, our thinker of The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and Middle-earth would have to say about this. Because in his essays, in Tree and Leaf, he writes about the process of being a creator who crafts a sub-creation in this world. And I know many of us, myself included, don't know that much about history, but I think we can learn in really fun ways. If I can learn how to get this to go forward. Okay, so I think we can learn from the story told in the Odyssey of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is one of my favorite movies. I highly recommend it. And it's essentially the story of these two California bros who are about to fail history class most famously. And they go on this epic adventure to learn about history. And in their words, they enjoy some most excellent music along the way. But what would we learn about history on a similar adventure, about California and technology? So if you grew up here like I did, maybe in 4th grade, you learned about the history of the California missions, about our El Camino Real, that's now in part our Highway 101, that ran from beautiful San Diego up to San Francisco, interconnecting the land. And in 3rd grade seems to be coming up today, 3rd grade was the California Gold Rush. And what would that have to offer about helping us see the rapid changes we're seeing in Silicon Valley today? So there are important lessons to learn from history. We may remember Manifest Destiny from the days of our US high school history class. And maybe that's the danger that lies in story making and story crafting. So there's an interesting ambiguity in that word, lies. We construct fables for ourselves at times, perhaps even deceptive beauties about either our past or our present, sometimes saying we're just working toward a better future, maybe a destiny perhaps. Either something that we will manifest or will be manifested. But all the while we may remain blind to the true darkness of history and the many shades of dark potential that are present in all of us and may forever be. So we may be afraid to look at the true darkness of history because we may be afraid of the history we are making now and the history we may continue to make. But one of the teachers I had, a guy who's a quintessentially Californian dude like Bill and Ted, he said, there's no Star Wars in the real world, no black and white, but rather great complexity and endless shades of gray. And actually, I saw him say this on a graduation speech that's posted on Facebook, so thank you, Facebook. But I really like that idea, and I did like it on Facebook too. We're always dealing with complexity. Inner and outer peace are mere words for a complex biological, psychological, and social entanglement that spans across history. And perhaps that's the beauty of it, that we can learn to approach this complexity and entanglement with compassion and love. We can work to transform the ugly. We can work to change this world, but at the same time find beauty in the ugly and learn to love the ugly and the beauty in this process. So I think we can learn a lot from this wise dude. This is Sophocles, our wise playwright of ancient Greece. And his story is a story of compassion for Oedipus and love for Antigone. And if you're unfamiliar with those stories, you can Wikipedia the Theban tragedies. But in recrafting the story of Oedipus, Sophocles lets us see Oedipus's blindness to difficult truth. It's a blindness that ultimately leads to Oedipus's tragic end. So it leads to his tragic end, but ultimately because he did not know himself in the most important sense. But Sophocles, essentially, he gives us hope because, like him, we can approach the darkest of our stories by feeling the suffering, or we can approach the darkest stories by feeling the brewing of compassion and suffering in the heart and tasting the love of wine that spills forth. So I wanted to conclude with one final image, and this is an image in part inspired by John Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn, this imagery of leaf and tree. And he writes in the ode, "Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare." And the image I want to conclude with is an image of how we can reinvent or reimagine our relationship with social media. So a lot of people these days are saying when everything's going up online, it's a lot harder to recreate or start things afresh, to recreate aspects of your identity. And this has traditionally been a great part of, say, going to college or just naturally progressing through the many stages of life. And Sherry Turk writes about this in far more detailed terms, and so does Elisha Abujade. But it makes me wonder what the poet John Keats would think about Facebook. So I don't know, maybe it's a good thing he didn't have to. But it seems that when he looked at the Grecian urn, he saw the beauty of art, the image, but he saw that fundamentally that human life was not meant to be static, but rather to be lived in the real. And in some ways, today we're so caught up with capturing the leaves, little sound bites, images, conversations, all of it, in this bizarre form of immortality that we're not letting the core of our identities grow and mature as nature meant it. So leaves are meant to fall with autumn, while we really hold on to the trunk and the sturdy branches of a tree that's rooted in continual growth and change. And perhaps the hope is that this too can change. So just as the leaves that fall can be played in, we can even perhaps turn this into art. And the sticks and branches we pick up can provide the fuel for the celebratory spirit of the campfire and the songs we sing. So, true inner peace innovation, where art thou? I don't know, but I just want to enjoy the campfire with my friends. Thank you.